Well, hi everybody, and welcome to the Train Noir panel. We're really happy to be at online crime. We would be much happier to be at lime crime itself and down by the seaside instead of in our houses. But there we go. Susie, I guess every event like this has to start off with how are you coping with lockdown?
Actually, surprisingly well. And I was just talking to some people today online about how I don't really want it to end yet because I've kind of got into
Yeah,
a routine where I quite like what I'm doing. I'm not spending any money. I'm like enjoying going out
yeah,
for a walk every day as my highlight of the day, which I did anyway. But like now it feels like a thing because you can't really do
yeah.
much else. And just kind of being at home is kind of nice in a way because I've just got lots of stuff done. I've got like decluttered my house and sorted stuff out, and yeah, I'm kind of thinking I'm not quite ready to go back into the real world yet. Although I am missing seeing people, and obviously I'm gutted that there's no crime writing festivals this year, especially Lime, because that was going to be really good. What about you?
Yeah, I'm completely the same. Just, I mean, my social life basically is book festivals, so that's really the only thing I'm missing out on. Apart from that, staying at home looking at screens all day is pretty much what I do. So there's not been that much of a big difference. Cinemas as well. I miss cinemas. I
Yeah,
was just saying it's going to be quite good that it will actually be illegal for people to sit next to you in the cinema, which I think should have been the case all along.
I agree. And actually, one of the when I first moved to London, which was a very long time ago now, I went to the cinema on my own one day in the afternoon. I can't even remember what I watched, but it was the cinema at Marble Arch, which is quite a small one. You go kind of round the back and stuff. Anyway, I was in there. There's literally no one else in there, and some weird creepy guy came in and sat next to me. So that was
What
nice.
kind of cinema was this, Susie?
Yeah, so it definitely should be illegal to have people sit next to you in the cinema.
Yeah. Definitely people like that.
Yeah.
So this is the Train Noir panel, which actually we should be. We have no excuse for not being great at because we did a mini tour last autumn and visited a bunch of bookshops and libraries, just talking about the fact that our then new books were both set on trains. I don't know if you want to kick off with talking about Violet.
Yeah, I will do. This is Violet. So Violet is set on the Trans-Siberian Express, which is kind of going to combine some questions here because research based, I was there, I went on this trip. I did it in 2006 before I was a writer, but it was actually on that trip that I started writing. So I always knew that I think that I would set something on the train, but I didn't have a story. I mean, the book that I started writing on that train was the very first thing I'd ever written since school, and it was obviously complete rubbish. But eventually I decided that I would set a proper story there. And so a psychological thriller where two girls who previously were strangers meet up in Beijing and then decide to take the train together seemed like the perfect thing to set there. Because on travel, those kind of trips especially, you just meet completely random people and you kind of have this assumed bond because you're all traveling, so you think, well, you sort of trust each other, and you can't, you've no idea what anyone could tell you anything, and you just kind of have to believe what they say. So I thought it was the perfect setup to have two girls of the same sort of age, that you would think, yeah, that's great, we'll get on. And obviously it's a psychological thriller, not a friendship novel, so it doesn't go very well.
That's definitely something I think a lot of writers get, where you find, hey, there'd be you could set a great thriller on this place or in this place, and you have to wait for the idea to come. So that's sometimes quite annoying. We think it'd be great to write a book set here, but I have no ideas yet for it. I guess that was kind of similar to what I did. So my Train Noir based book is What She Saw Last Night, and available in all good bookshops when they open. Well, I think they are open
Yeah.
now. And that was kind of, I hadn't actually done the trip at this point, but I read an article in the Guardian a few years ago about what was then the forthcoming relaunch of the Caledonian Sleeper service, which is the train that goes from London to Scotland. So it sort of can end up in Edinburgh or Glasgow, or you can go further north into the Highlands. And I just thought, that'd be a great place to kill somebody on. So it was just sort of really interesting here reading the article about the history of the service, which goes back over 100 years, and thinking about the new mod cons that we're going to be adding and how that would change the journey. And I just thought, it'd be great to just have a murder mystery set on that. And the next thing I thought was somebody will have done that already. And to my shock and amazement, and being quite pleased about it, it turned out that nobody had actually done one on that specific train. So I thought, right, I'm gonna go for it and do that before anybody else does it.
Perfect. And did you not find out that someone else was thinking about doing one on the train? Did you tell me?
It wasn't just someone else. I was doing an I Write event a few years ago, and I was in the green room with none other than Ian Rankin. And we were just sort of chatting before, as you do, and he asked what I was working on, and I had a few things on the boil. And I said one of the things I was thinking of was writing a murder mystery set on the Caledonian sleeper train. And Ian said, I've kind of always wanted to do something like that. And, maybe the train comes into Waverley and there's a body on board and Rebus has to work out what's going on, but I've never gotten around to it. So I just thought, right, I'm going to do it before Ian gets to it. So sorry, Ian. I'm sure he could still write it and it'd be 10 times better than
I
that.
think there's actually lots of books and films set on trains, but I think both of ours are kind of interesting because they're very different kinds of stories, but we've both set it on a journey. And mine obviously involves people coming off and things happening to them on the way, and yours has kind of got a similar thing to it as well. But what I also thought was interesting was that you set yours on the train before they did it up. So you had the old train, so you had the old kind of, it was probably how old, 30 years old or something prior to that, and also when I did the trip 2006, the Trans-Siberian trains were pretty old, so there's lots of things that are not very old mod cons, and they still aren't. So I think, did you find that was useful to have something old rather than new stuff, which would be better in a way?
Definitely, and I think, there were practical reasons why it was good, but also I think, we were both sort of tapping into that sort of long and proud history of train-based thrillers, going back to obviously Murder on the Orient Express and The Lady Vanishes, and it was kind of nice to have that sort of slightly kind of old-fashioned time capsule element to it. So I think that worked atmosphere-wise, but one of the sort of huge benefits about writing about a train that's 30 years old is you don't have to deal with a lot of the absolute pains in the butt that you have to deal with today, such as CCTV.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to get a tour of the train from the people that run the Caledonian Sleeper. And one of my first questions was, whereabouts do you have the CCTV cameras, just so I could work out where I didn't want them to be. And they said, we've got none at all. There are no cameras on the train. And that's because they'd go back 30 or 40 years. And it is literally or it was then like stepping into a 1980s rolling stock train. So that just completely took out one of the big headaches for crime writers right away. And the other one obviously is mobile phones. So because the train journey takes you into the Highlands, it takes you way out of any sort of reliable phone signal. So that was sort of killing two birds with one stone by setting it on this train. Was I didn't have to worry about those things. So your one, I feel like a lot of times the train itself became a character because of that sort of old-fashionedness and the fact that it's a bit creaky and a bit sort of dilapidated. Was that something that you were sort of consciously tapping into?
I think so as well, yeah, because also I'd done the trip quite a few years ago now. Sorry, I think I just inhaled pollen from somewhere, but I don't know where it's come from. It's because I'm starting to think, I was about to say something about Russia, that's so maybe it's some sort of weird polonium thing, but the train, like, so I read up on the train now, like sort of modern times, to see if it had changed much, and apparently it hasn't really changed. So even when you're in first class, you've not really got any mod cons. Like, they do have a first class carriage and it's got kind of tablecloths and stuff, so maybe that's different now. But I kind of like the fact that it felt a bit old-fashioned, the same thing, and you're not quite sure what's going to happen. And one of the things that happens on the train from Beijing to when it goes into Mongolia and then it goes into Russia, they have got different gauge railways, so they have to change all the wheels. So one of the things they do is they stop at this point and at the border, and they basically change them all. So you just have to wait for hours, however long it might take. And it just sort of things like that kind of make it a trip that you could never really experience. I mean, you can't imagine that happening on a train from Edinburgh to London.
Right, yeah.
Although who knows what might happen if they build a wall, you know, then there'll have to be a tunnel.
You never know.
Yeah, so just kind of things like that just added to it, and just the places off it as well, because the places that you stop off on the Trans-Siberian are unusual places, and the only reason people go there is because they've got the Trans-Siberian Express. Like, you probably wouldn't go there otherwise. Although Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar is obviously a big city, but it still had that feel of slightly ramshackleness and just of a different era. And from what I've heard of people who've gone there not that long ago, it's still kind of the same. So yeah, I think there's a bit of a romance about having stuff that's old, and it's definitely helpful to not have phones. I mean, I use the not having phones thing as being signal, and also crossing through 3 different countries and having mobile roaming. It's not that reliable anyway, so even if you did have...
you were quite clever with that, because I think at one point you've got emails that don't send and sort of stay in the drafts thing, so that was sort of quite a good way of using that. So it's one of those things that's an absolute pain in the ass if you're actually there, but it's quite useful for us as crime writers.
Yeah, well, actually, because when we went on this trip, we did have phones, but they weren't... This was in 2006, so although people were using phones, it wasn't quite as crazy now when you're completely glued to it the whole time. And also roaming didn't properly exist then, so we were meant to just use a phone for sort of emergencies, to phone home now and again to say we're all right and whatever. But I remember having a phone conversation in Beijing that probably lasted about 20 minutes, and when I got home, I think I had a phone bill of about £300.
Yeah. It's crazy to think though, because you think, you know, when we first, you know, as teenagers and sort of 20s, were going, you know, off on holidays and trips and things, like, you just sort of touch base with your parents every few days, and nowadays that would be, they would freak out if, you know, they didn't hear from you on an hourly basis. It's
I mean, that's what happened with that poor girl that got killed in New Zealand. Was it last year or the year before? Like, it's only because they hadn't heard from her for 24 hours that they knew something was wrong. Whereas exactly, when we were younger, it would be 2 weeks and it would still be okay. So big changes.
There should be a postcard coming at some point, but
yes. So we asked for questions on this because we've done this panel a few times, and we thought we'd kind of bring the audience into it. So we've got quite a lot of questions. So I have got them scribbled down. So do you want me to kind of go through and I'll ask, and we can just go through some of those?
Yeah, go for it.
Right, I'm going to start off with one which you might now know the answer to if you've thought about it. Dan Stewart asked, if the answer is 9,289, what's the question?
Okay, and I have resisted Googling this. I don't know. I mean, the sort of obvious one seems to be something about distance. Is it like the sort of length of track of the Trans-Siberian Railway?
It is indeed. In miles or kilometers, though.
Okay. Kilometers, since it's Russia?
Yes, correct. Yes. Gary Irvin has asked, I think to me, because he's obviously read something, or I've tweeted something about this in the past, but he said Trans-Siberian Express or cargo ship. Well, I have travelled on both of those. I travelled on a cargo ship from Australia to China, which took 2 weeks, with a stop off in Taiwan, where we had to get driven around and get a yellow fever jab before we could dock. And that was a very strange experience because we were the only 2 passengers. So yeah, I've always thought about writing a book based...
I was going to say, when's the book based on that?
I'm pretty sure no one's written a book based on a cargo ship. I don't know though.
Somebody must have, but...
Yeah, but being a passenger like that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because the thing...
Again, it's a great setting.
There's loads of containers. It was just containers, and we were told that even the crew don't know what's in them for security reasons. So, watch the space.
Actually, that could be a good horror.
I think that's what I thought. I thought it has to be a horror, I think. Yeah.
Like they're transporting some sort of monster. Yeah. Or Yeti. Yeah. It could be Yeti cargo ship horror.
Yes.
There you go. Thanks for that, sure.
Okay, so Louise Beach has asked a question which is also aimed at me, but I think you should answer it. Has anyone ever licked your face at a book launch?
Sadly not. I'm afraid not. It feels like there's a story there, though.
Yes, in fact, I think it wasn't at the Violet launch. I don't think. I think it was at Lingering, where Louise Beach was congratulating me on my book by licking my face. I don't know why, but now we're in lockdown due to coronavirus. So I don't know. Is there a connection?
I think, yeah, maybe she started it.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, nobody's physically touched me without expecting it at a book launch. I'm pleased to say. I think probably the weirdest thing that's happened was this guy sort of stood there for about 10 minutes asking me why you could only get a book deal if you went to Eton. And I'm not sure what I had said or done that made him think that I'd been to Eton, but he was quite worked up about it. But he didn't try and lick my face, so I'll take that.
Okay, Louise Fairbairn has asked a good one. Would you want to take a long train journey with the characters in your books?
Oh, so I'll go first. So I think it depends on the character, definitely. So the protagonist of my book, Jenny, is just a sort of normal person who happens to witness something strange on a train, where she sees a woman and a young girl getting into a cabin one night, and in the morning she finds the dead body of the woman, and there's no sign of the kid, and she asks the staff on the train, what about the little girl, was she okay? And they say, what little girl? And because there's no CCTV, there's no way of proving that. So I kind of really liked writing from her point of view. It was first sort of full novel that I'd written from female point of view, and I found it was quite nice just writing it from the point of view of a normal person, as opposed to Carter Blake, who's a sort of kind of more James Bondy spy type guy. And I found it was quite fun just throwing somebody that was a bit more like me, that does freak out about things and doesn't always do the right thing, into a crazy situation. So I think I probably would like to hang out with her on a train. I wouldn't like to be on a train with the villain, who would probably make sure that I didn't leave the train at the other end. How about you?
Yeah, mine's a bit tricky, I think, because I kind of like both. My two characters are called Violet and Carrie, and they meet in Beijing in a hotel, and Carrie has a train ticket for the Mongolian leg of the Trans-Siberian, and Violet wants a ticket, but there's none left. So after then deciding to have a few beers together, Carrie decides that why don't they go together? So she invites Violet to take her place. So the reason why she's got a spare ticket is because her friend Laura, who was supposed to travel with her, has broken her leg and couldn't make the trip. So she's got the spare ticket. She can't get a refund, and she meets this girl. So she, you meet someone, have a few beers, and you think that's a good idea. So the two of them, if like sort of the opening when they meet, they're both quite good fun, and you can kind of think, actually, yeah, I'd go on that train journey with those girls. That sounds good. And they do have a lot of fun, and they do a lot of partying, and lots of good things happen, but then some bad stuff happens too, and it turns out that Violet is not really telling the truth about anything that's going on, but then is Carrie telling the truth? So basically got two unreliable narrators, I think, but they're both quite fun. So I think I would like to go on a trip with them, but I wouldn't want to share a cabin with them, and I definitely wouldn't want to be alone with either of them, I don't think. But I think they'd be good fun to meet up with on the train.
Yeah, I totally get that. I've known people that were unreliable, but definitely fun to spend time with in small doses. So yeah.
Yeah, it's all about small doses, isn't it? You don't want to get trapped with someone like that where you're actually potentially in danger, even if they're not necessarily going to hurt you. Just being in their company is potentially dangerous. So,
and I suppose that's one thing about long train journey, is it's harder to disappear and get out of that situation.
Yes, which leads to another question from someone asked about which train journey would you like to make? Yeah, Jennifer Harvey.
Yeah, that was one. Yeah.
Yeah, which train journey would you like to make, and is there one you wouldn't like to make?
Okay, so train journey I would like to make, I'm going to be horrifyingly unoriginal. I would love to do the proper Orient Express, going from Venice to Istanbul, and just do that whole From Russia with Love thing. I think it costs about the same as my house to do it, so it's unlikely that I'm going to get to do that at any point. But would just would love to do that. Even if it was if they had like sort of crappy sort of third class carriage that they stuck on at the end that you could do it in a sort of a more reasonable price, maybe that'd be an option. But yeah, I would love to do that. But there's actually, have you seen Tony Robinson's show? He did sort of great train journeys a while ago, and he did all these really cool journeys. Like he went to sort of Mexico, and he might have done the Trans-Siberian Express, I think.
Did the Trans-Siberian.
Yeah, a lot of those looked really cool.
Yeah, there's so many really cool ones. I've done quite a lot of train journeys around the world. So I've done in America, I've done the California Zephyr, which goes from Chicago to San Francisco, which takes 2.5 days or 3 days or something, which was great because all the people on there weren't doing the whole trip. They were just taking the train for short city to city trips. And every time we met anyone on there, they were like, why are you not flying? It's much quicker. But which kind of not the point. So I'd love to do all of the Amtrak trains because they're just such amazing trains. Well, I mean, I've heard mixed reports from some people, but I think most Amtrak fans are Amtrak fans. They're really cool. Like they've got 2 floors and you get little beds that flip down like this, and they're just really nice.
Yeah, the sort of north by northwest ones.
Yeah, and then but on the other side of that, I've also done overnight trains in India and Thailand, India and China actually. In India, we had to share like a 2 double bunk room with a guy, a French guy who had some sort of vomiting bug. Vomiting diarrhea bug. So he basically spent his whole time in his bottom bunk just being really ill, apart from when he went to the toilet and asking us to get us water and just speaking random words of delirious French because he was really sick. And so that wasn't the best experience on the train. And then another one wasn't the best experience, which I think you can relate to, is we got within Thailand, we went from Bangkok to Chiang Mai, I think. And on the way there, we had bunks, but on the way back, we couldn't get bunks, so we had seats. And we thought, that'll be fine. It's fine to get a seat. It's no problem. And I'm pretty sure you said you took a seat one time, and it's just not a good plan.
No, never take a seat. No matter what you do. If you take nothing else from my book, never take the seat. It was horrific. It was like some sort of kind of CIA torture thing. Like they don't turn the lights off, and I had this guy sitting in front of me, and which doesn't sound that bad, but the seats were quite close together, so we had to sort of organize our legs so we weren't brushing knees all night. And they'd run out of the little sort of welcome packs where you get one of those eye patches to help you sleep, and it was just the absolute worst night's sleep. I still to this day, if I'm struggling to get sleep, I think, well, it could be worse. I could be on the seated part of the Caledonian Sleeper. So no, absolutely horrific. I was going to say the my sort of train I would like to avoid is a bit less exotic, so I'd actually forgotten about that or possibly blanked it out. The one I had in mind was the Glasgow Central to Newton service, but only when the low-level service has been cancelled and everybody in Glasgow gets on that one train, and it makes the sort of rush hour in the tube look sort of fairly sort of relaxed and socially distanced, but you basically can't breathe out.
Yeah, not good. Other trains I don't like are ones that ever have a real replacement bus. If you don't know that's going to happen, and then you're quite happy and you're sitting there and reading your book or whatever you're doing, and then you're told to get off in some random place and get a bus. I mean, that's just barbaric. Actually, I actually did that. I was on a train once from going to Oxford from London, I think, and it broke down. So we had to get off in Reading, and we didn't know when the next train was. So I don't know. There was something weird happened. Anyway, there was a few people were kind of clustered, and we had to get to Oxford. And so we decided to share a taxi. Now, I had an idea about that for a book, because I basically just jumped in a taxi with 3 complete strangers. And I'm fine, obviously.
I would absolutely do that to avoid a bus. I've actually sort of walked 5 miles to avoid taking a bus. So completely with you there.
But again, that's kind of like the thing about meeting someone traveling. You just trust them because you think we all want the same thing here. So let's do this. But anything could have happened, but didn't. But anyway, that's another idea. So hang on, I've got cargo ship and the taxi one to add to the list. Yeah.
This is being quite fruitful.
Merlin Davies says, if you could only take one book on a long train journey, which one would you take?
Oh, actually, I might take the one that I'm reading at the moment because it's really long. So I'm reading the collected stories of Ray Bradbury, and it's one of those sort of big everyman hardbacks, and it's like 1,000 pages long. But it's because it's short stories, you can dip in and out of it, and you can zip about to sort of different periods, and it's all different stories. So I think that would be quite a good compromise because it's absolutely massive, but you've got all of these individual short stories. How about you?
Yeah, similar. I've got on my Kindle, I've got the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe, which is also that. So it's all novels and short stories and novellas and everything. So that would definitely keep me going for quite a long time.
I suppose that's a smart answer. Is I would take a Kindle.
But yeah, just take a Kindle. I was going to
Like
just say I'll take a
one.
Kindle and then you can
Yeah,
take whatever you like, but that's cheating.
and
But
it's every book.
yeah. Yeah, so Helen Kist has said, what would, if you saw someone asleep on a train and you knew that it was coming up to their stop and they were still asleep, would you wake them up?
I would like to think so. So I think the one thing I'd be worried about would be that they would assume I was creepy for knowing where they were supposed to get off, and would assume that I'd been stalking them on their commute.
Yeah,
But if it was me, I would want somebody to wake me up because that's happened to me. I used to commute to Stirling University, and the number of times I would sort of get in a really early train and wake up having missed my stop in Dunblane and have to backtrack.
yeah.
It was a bit of a pain in the butt.
Yeah, same, I think. But also you have to watch because some people, I mean, especially on tubes, you get a lot of drunk people who fall asleep and you don't know how someone's going to react if you wake them up when they're drunk sometimes.
Right.
So I
If
think
they do wake up,
if
because there's
they
that urban myth about bodies that just go round and round in the subway.
well, I don't know if that's an urban myth or not. My brother used to do that all the time when he lived with me in London. Quite often, he would come home like 4 hours later than planned because he had been back and forward the whole length of the Central
Yeah.
Line. So yeah,
I've occasionally done that in Glasgow because Glasgow has got the most basic underground system in the world, as you know. It's got sort of 15 stops and it's just a circle.
yeah,
So sometimes, if I've been in town with time to kill, I will get on the subway if it's raining and I will just ride around in a circle reading a book, and it's quite nice. It's a good tip to get out of the rain.
that's a good thing though because I think do you write on trains sometimes? Well, you used to when you were commuting. Do you write
I
on?
used to, yeah, yeah. Actually, that's something I'm missing. Yeah, trains is probably they're probably my ideal writing environment because as long as it's not one of those sardine trains with a low level cancelled, if you can get a table, then it tends to be Wi-Fi is going to be patchy anyway, so there's less distractions compared to being at home. You've got a nice view, nobody's going to bother you, and in a sort of short to medium trip like Glasgow to Edinburgh, for example, is a really good route to get stuff done on because you've got an hour, nobody interrupts you, and you can really get the words down. So yeah, trains are probably my ideal writing environment.
Hmm. I quite like. I usually write in cafes, so I'm kind of missing that. But
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's kind of one thing that I'm quite keen to do when lockdown lifts and go and sit in a cafe and write. But the
yeah,
problem is on trains and cafes, you've got the same problem. You might be quite happy you've got a table or you've got a seat with your own little space and stuff. But then when other people get on and someone comes and sits next to you, that really annoys me, especially when I'm writing.
luckily that too will be against the law, so
Very
we'll
true.
be okay.
Very true. So
Yeah,
we're actually safe
we're fine.
from
Yeah.
people in general. Okay, have I got any more questions? They Yes, okay. Pauline Winder Bryan asked, if you could choose any author, living or dead, to co-write a book with, who would it be?
Hmm. I thought it was the one about any author living or dead to take a train journey with,
Well,
which is
both,
a
because
different
they
answer.
both combine them.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, to write a book with, probably Stephen King because it would sell a hell of a lot of copies, no matter who he was co-writing with. Also, I really like Stephen King, so yeah, I'm going to say Stephen King. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, he would also be good to take a train journey with, because I reckon he'd be pretty interesting.
He would be definitely big time. I think if I'd thought about that, and I thought it'd be quite good to go in a party and bring with you Agatha Christie, Patricia Highsmith, and Ethel Lena White, who have written the sort of classic train mysteries, and you could just pick their brains about how they wrote their books back in the day.
Yeah, good one. I don't have a better answer than that, so I'm going to go with that. I was going to say I'd quite like to co-write a book with James Patterson, but I mean, what I meant was I might like to write one of his books.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like that. Everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. You know, within the next few years, everybody will have co-written a James Patterson novel.
I think it'd be good though. I mean, if you want your name out there to a lot of people, I would do it. I would definitely do it.
Yeah, and he's upfront about it. You know, he puts
Yeah,
the name on the cover of the book,
absolutely.
so we know there are other people who write books that perhaps don't credit the co-authors. So
yeah. So yeah,
fair enough.
James, if you're watching this, I'd love to write a book for you. So get in touch.
Yep, we're happy. We're available.
Just quickly before we sign off, what are you writing next? Have you got another book out now since this one, the train one?
So confusingly, yes, I have a book out this week, but it's under a different name. So having been Mason Cross for the Carter Blake books and MJ Cross for the What She Saw Last Night, I am going to be, for this book, I'm going to be Alex Knight, which is getting closer to my real name because Alexander's my middle name. And this is just sort of change of pseudonym because it's a standalone. It's a little bit different from what I have done in the past. But this one's set in the States, and it's based around this thing they've got there where if a child goes missing, they can send an alert to everybody's phone within an area. So everybody in San Francisco gets a text message, basically. And in this one, in chapter 1, a guy's woken up by banging on the door, and it's his girlfriend's daughter that's there. She's covered in blood, saying that somebody shot her mum, and he goes to call for help, and his phone lights up before he can touch it, saying there's been a child abducted. It's the one that's on his doorstep, and the suspect is him. And that's the
Ooh, I'd say that sounds really exciting, but it is. I've read it. It's brilliant. And I'm in awe of all the names that you have. So well done.
I'm going to try and get it down to a new name for every single book and just make it really confusing for anybody trying to find me in a bookshop. Your new one looks really good. I've got that next on my Kindle.
Well, yeah, my new one is The Last Resort, which is out in December, and it's set on an island, which again was another research trip that's set on the Scilly Isles, and it's a place that I went last year, and I actually did get stranded there, so that's
got marooned. That's right, yeah.
A little bit of a story there, but yeah, it's a bit of a twist. It's kind of the usual kind of Agatha Christie type thing. There's people on an island and bad stuff happens, but it's got a bit of a Black Mirror sort of technology twist to it. So yeah, that's out later in the year, and I just like to keep writing different books under the same name to confuse people. Although this one is under Susie instead of SJI, so yeah. One of these days, Gav, we're just going to write books under our own names.
That would just be crazy.
So everyone, thanks very much for watching us. We had great fun talking about our train trips again, and it's just made me feel a little bit sad that I can't travel at the moment, but I suppose I will be able to do it very soon. And just as a reminder, this is my train book.
And this is my train book.
And also, thank you for your questions. We have got a winner of each. We've each picked a winner of the questions, and we will send out a copy of our books. If you've actually read these books, then feel free to request a different one, because we also have several others and also new ones coming out, so you can do that. Who's your winner, Mason?
My winner, I'm going to pick Louise Beach, who asked if anybody had licked our faces at an event, just because you also know it's quite rare to get a question you've never had before, so I think we should give props for that one.
Yeah, definitely. And I am going to pick, and also, you know that next time you see Louise, the first thing she's going to do is so you're asking for trouble. However,
fingers crossed.
My winner is Pauline Render Byron, who asked the question on Facebook about if I could choose any author, living or deceased, to co-write a book with, because she's obviously helped set up my deal for me and Jim Patterson, you know. So thank you, Paul.
Of course, yeah. And even Stephen King.
Yes. So yeah, final look, and thanks very much everyone for watching, and we'll hope to see you in real life at a festival next year.
Thanks.